Do you ever feel stuck, like you're living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lechter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. I'm Sharon Lechter, your host, and always excited to introduce you to incredible young women. I'm always looking for those women in the next generation that are taking the step to educate other women and also become strong investors themselves. So I'm really excited today to have, Mandy McAllister with me. She is just a delight. Look at her. Look at the smile. Not only is she CEO of GoBundance, the organization that has incredible women. I had the honor to speak with them and just love this group of women. Very energetic, very supportive of one another, all involved, a lot of them in real estate, but a lot of them are business owners, highly successful, 6, 7, 8, 9 figures. So really excited to meet all these women. And Mandy, thank you so much for being with me today.
It's my tremendous pleasure, Sharon. Thank you.
Well, you followed kind of a traditional pattern and then decided to leave your W-2 job. But what I really want to start, I want to dial even a little further back. So tell us about little Mandy and how you got started.
Well, little Mandy was born on a farm. So if you ever need to bale hay, I can help with that, Sharon.
Well, we need that at our ranch all the time, Mandy. So be careful what you offer.
I've always been cheap work for my dad, so might as well be for you too. So then I followed a volleyball scholarship to a little school in Georgia called Mercer and moved to Chicago the day after graduation and ended up doing a master's degree in economics and found my way into sales, medical device sales for the bulk of my career after a short stint in trading on the Chicago Board of Trade floor. So
I love that. Well, my sister started her first year in college at Mercer. So there's a connection there. Yeah, a few years ago, obviously, but yeah, she started at Mercer. A beautiful campus, beautiful little area south of Atlanta there.
Mm-hmm. I only wanted to go Division I and full ride because I didn't want any debt after college. Like that really seemed like the path to setting up my life. So I guess I've always kind of been a little bit entrepreneurial.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about the transition from your medical device W-2 job to deciding to step into the world of being an entrepreneur on your own and real estate investing.
Yeah. So when I was 19, actually at Mercer, I was standing on the porch of a house that my friend owned or was explaining that her dad bought, and she rented out the houses to our shared friends. And I thought, and you get to keep that money? That's the best idea I've ever heard in my whole life, right? So that planted the seed at 19. But because I was a perfect little girl who got straight A's and waited her turn and raised her hand, I did all the right things. Master's economics, President's Club all the time at medical device sales, ended up realizing that wait, I didn't go to medical school because I didn't want to be on call. And now I'm in a business world on call for medicine. So I got to change something here. So just as I had become a single mom, I divorced. I've got he's now 7 years old, little boy. One of my bosses asked me to do something that kind of felt outside my moral compass. And I realized, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if I don't do this thing? Am I going to lose my job? And I realized, wait, I have $3,000-ish coming in a month. I'm not going to live extravagantly, but I won't live under a bridge with my kid. So I decided in that moment to double down on all things real estate investing. And it's just a math problem. The minute that you make, this better than anybody, Sharon, the minute you make more money, more coming in from your passive investments than is going out to live your life, you have the freedom to live any way you want, including inside your moral compass.
Exactly. Financial freedom is when the income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses. So absolutely. And so you started investing in real estate, but when did you make the transition to wanting to help other women as well?
I've always felt like I am the only thing special about me is my unwillingness to give up, right? I am so exactly like everyone else. And I believe firmly that you're given two arms for a reason. One, yes, to pull yourself up, but the other to be pulling people alongside you. And I've
Love that.
always, oh,
I
thank
love
you.
that. That's a good analogy. Love that.
Thank you. So I've always kind of banged on tables when I saw a path that felt greater, easier, more empowering. And just being the only woman I mostly play in small multis. I buy mostly 4 units to around 100 unit properties. And that's largely male dominated. So, you know, I just a chance to get to explain to women that you don't have to be perfect. It's not going to be a perfect deal. You just need to be reasonable enough in moving forward in your portfolio. It takes a lot of weight off, because I think one of the most annoying things about the entire human psyche is that you kind of have to see that something can happen for someone who looks like you before you're willing to believe that it could happen for you. So a chance to stand up and be that example really, really matters to me.
Well, you are a living example of what I teach, the power of association, because you truly, your energy comes into the room along with you, and you really show that compassion for other people. So what kinds of real estate are you invested in?
I'm actually under contract to sell the end of my single family homes. I've been moving into these, what I call small multis. 50-ish units is my favorite because it seems to be a little too small for the institutional guys and a little too big for your average run of the mill real estate investors. And I can get it on debt that is backed by our government, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, agency debt that is non-recourse. So if it hits the fan, then I'm not personally liable to that loan.
I love that. That's the gap. We teach finding the gap wherever you are. So I think that's fantastic. And then, you have really, when you founded GoBundance, tell us a little bit about your organization.
Sure. So GoBundance actually began as a men's organization in the late 90s. And it was four guys who would travel and go on epic trips and provide accountability. And they grew in these really tremendous ways. And in 2019, 2020, they looked up and realized, oh, wait, we should be serving women too. So in the process of that, I joined very quickly after they began the women's division in 2020. And then actually just this last year, we approached those guys who started the men's organization and said, this could be so much greater. So like just a little bit better if it could be for women by women. And they agreed with us, and we struck a deal. And now I have the distinct honor of serving as CEO of that organization to lift up women.
And you have women from all over the place, right?
Yeah, we're in Europe. We're all over the United States. We were 88 paying members when we began this journey in December of 2022, and now we are at 133. So we are extending our collective genius in a big way, but I do not want to do that at the expense of growing incorrectly or out of authenticity.
So do you meet monthly virtually, or what kind of meetings do you have?
We put on about 40 hours of programming a month, and a lot of it is niche-y. So if you're interested in triple net leasing, like we have a group that meets on that, short-term rentals, a group that meets on that. I'm part of the apartment investor micro tribe, we call it. But we also have individual groups called GoPods that I look at them as the board of directors for my life. That everything that's going on, all the skeletons in my closet, all of the stuff that goes right, all of the stuff that goes wrong. But being anyone striving for success, you feel like you have to have that I have my act together face on. And if I have that with my kids and in my business, and I coach volleyball sometimes too, to those girls, it's nice to have a place to go that I can let it down, let that I have my act together face down, and say, stuff is just hard. This is a difficult thing to deal with. And that's what I find being part
That's
of
the power of a mastermind, which just sounds like your GoPods are, in essence, a mastermind. People
Exactly.
can, when you have a problem, somebody else in the group's probably had that problem and can tell you how they solved it. So
Mhm.
it's priceless, particularly for women, because we don't have necessarily the good old boys network. So you guys are creating the young women's network to help
Yes.
people in the power of investing, but also mindset. You call yourself a mindset ninja. Tell me a little bit about that.
I always feel like the things that are in front of me that seem hard, if I just reframe them just a little bit, a little ninja trick to whatever that hard thing is, it becomes so much easier to deal with. One that's in front of me right now is I'm one of very few women who invest in multifamily real estate. It's growing. Don't get me wrong. I could not be more thrilled for that. But when I would go to conferences 7, 8 years ago, I was one of very few women. So the chance now to be able to be one of the speakers at all of these events is because I don't look like most of the population. It is a competitive advantage to be the only woman in the room. And that little mindset ninja hat gives me a lot more power when I enter anything that feels like I'm the only one.
I love that. Yeah, people would always say, why do you feel, weren't you scared being the only woman when I started? Of course, I was the only woman in my accounting classes and one of the very first women hired in public accounting. And I said, no, I kind of looked at that as kind of being a trailblazer. So I looked at it as an opportunity, not, turn the fear into faith that opened the door for other people. And I like that 2-arm thing, one going up and one pulling somebody up. So I love that. I'll give you credit for it if I think so. So when somebody watching and listening to this right now, and they want to get into real estate, and they've got that fear, how do you talk about your mindset, how do you get past the mindset fear?
Oh, this is such a big thing in any new thing that you're going to do. So I'll speak to specifically what I did when going from 4 and 6 units. That felt very comfortable for a while, but then I started jumping into the 50-ish unit properties. And it was a big change. Like you start adding zeros, things get scarier sometimes. At the time I was doing that, I was reading a lot of Stoic philosophy, and it was the beginning of COVID, right? So the world was ending. And I realized that, oh, wait, what is the actual worst case scenario here? What is whatever thing you're scared of? Don't just, oh, this little thing could happen, that little thing could happen. What is the absolute worst case scenario? And then how can you mitigate the risk around it? For instance, in that 53 unit that we bought in COVID, I realized people were losing their jobs, but not everyone. Nurses kept their jobs, firefighters kept their jobs, essential workers kept their jobs. Bartenders and manicurists, on the other hand, they lost their jobs. So I realized, wait, I can see who has an at-risk job, looked at applications, at-risk job, not at-risk job, had an economic break-even point on that deal of 43%. I had 5 at-risk jobs, 10% was at risk. So absolute worst case scenario is that all 5 of them lost their job. I would still be able to pay my bills. So how can you figure out that absolute worst case scenario and mitigate all the risk you possibly can? And if you can feel good about moving forward into that, then you absolutely should.
And that's when you've heard me say, you got to know your numbers. You got to understand the economics and the numbers. And so, Mandy, you looked at what the risk was as, what's the worst case scenario? And that's something that I advise my clients to do all the time. So I love that. So if people want to know more about Mandy or GoBundance, how would they find you?
The best way to get a hold of me is through my website, mandymcallister.com, MandyMcAllister.com, or GoBundance Women can be found at GoBundanceWomen.com. Also a link on my website.
Yeah, it is an incredible organization, a lot of fun, a lot of laughter. They have but they're very focused on building that investment portfolio and building each other. It's one of the, I speak to a lot of women's groups, Mandy, and I don't say this lightly. I don't say this to every one of them, but I felt the energy, I felt the compassion, I felt the support there. And I think I just want to applaud you because you create that environment by the leadership that you give to that. So anybody interested in finding a group of women that can support you and move forward in investing, I highly recommend you check out GoBundance because it was just a delight to be with you guys. And I just applaud you for what you're doing. And any advice, kind of what you would feel for someone who's still watching and going, I haven't invested in real estate, but I probably should. And I just don't know how to get started.
I call this hindsight foresight. if you 20 years from now, so I'm 42. So if Mandy at 62 would look back would she be upset that I went for something or that I didn't go for something? Which one of those things will Mandy 20 years from now be more upset with? And you get one big life, as referenced from some fantastic book I've read before. You are only able to do this once, guys. Like, what are you waiting for? Mitigate the risk, move forward.
I love that. I love that. And it is so true. You know, you're only holding yourself back. You got to allow yourself to have that confidence and, you know, surround yourself with the people that can help you get there. So, Mandy, I have a private Facebook group called the Play Big Movement, and they've all come organically together because they want to be number one in their field. They want to live their legacy, which is created with every heart you touch every single day, and create maximum impact. And so they have come together collectively to support each other through this Facebook group. And so I always ask my podcast guests to stay and do a shorter interview for that group. And it goes into a little bit of the trials and tribulations and certainly also your success habits. So thank you for agreeing to do another small recording after this. But thank you so much for being part of this and sharing your brilliance and your smile and your attitude with the audience of the Play Big Movement podcast. And you are just such a delight. So MandyMcAllister.com, GoBundanceWomen.com, and check out Mandy and her group because I highly recommend them. So thank you, Mandy.
Thank you, Sharon.
And for all of you, thank you so much for watching and listening to this podcast, the Play Big Movement podcast with Sharon Lechter. Share this with your friends. Let us know. Give us some feedback on your thoughts, what you'd like to hear from, because we're here for you, because you are fabulous. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. Please subscribe to iTunes and leave us a review, as well as join us in other areas of social media, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Sharon Lechter, and for Facebook, author Sharon Lechter. Thank you so much and have a fabulous day.